I have over 17,000 VR points in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, so I would consider myself somewhat of a Mario Kart 8 Deluxe expert. I have been playing Mario Kart 8 since the Wii U days back in 2014, and I am here to rank every single track in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And let me tell you, this will be a massive undertaking because there are 96 tracks in this game. And starting off with Mario Kart Stadium and the Mushroom Cup, Mario Kart Stadium is one of those tracks that I am totally indifferent to. I don't mind it, but it's not one of the best ones in the game. We're going to put it at B tier for now. Moving on to Water Park, also in the Mushroom Cup. All of these go in 4 intervals into each cup. Water Park is also C tier. It's C tier. It's one of those tracks that, like, it's such a cool idea, like, oh my gosh, you're driving around this cool water park, but I feel as though they didn't necessarily capitalize on it as much as they should have. It was like one loop, and that's pretty much it. They didn't capitalize on the grandioseness of a theme park that they could have done. Moving on to Sweet Sweet Canyon. I'm also going to put this in C tier. It is very pretty, I will give it that. I love the aesthetics, I love the creativity around this concept, but I can't help but be bored at the track layout and just how it plays overall. Moving on to Thwomp Ruins. I think Thwomp Ruins has to be our first A tier. I love the idea of just taking a random enemy from Mario and just being like, hey, this place is just all dedicated to this. And I understand the idea of a ruins is probably not very interesting to a lot of people, but for me personally, Thwomp Ruins is such a cool idea, and I love the track layout, especially that shortcut at the end. No matter how many times I play this game, and I have played it for over 300 hours, by the way, easily, probably even 500 if you count the Wii U, but if you consider all of the above, Thwomp Ruins has to be one of the A-tier courses. Moving on to the Flower Cup. Now we have Mario Circuit, and this is another interesting one that I think has to go in B tier just for its creativity. It's one of the very first tracks that you play in the Wii U version, in which they really give you that essence of what the anti-gravity features are going to be. It's an inverse 8, so it's like an infinity sign, and also it just goes back and forth and around, and there's a really cool Peach Castle right in the middle of it that isn't necessarily from any one game, I don't think, but it's fine enough. I think I'll put it in B tier. Moving on to Toad Harbor. This has to go at the top of A tier. I love me some Toad Harbor. This track is one of my favorites in the entire game. I use it in a lot of videos. I listen to it a lot in my daily life. I love Toad Harbor. It's such a cute idea for all these toads to be in this one place. It's kind of got that San Francisco vibe with this weird train car here. I just love this track. Moving on to Twisted Mansion. A lot of people, I think, would rank this higher than I do, but I think I'm going to put it at the top of B tier. It is unappealing, but at the same time, it does exactly what it sets out to do. You go through the initial mansion, and then it's got that twisty road, but outside of that, there are no twists. Like, of course, at the very end, there are 2 different sections to which you can get to the glider path, but there aren't any actual twists within this mansion, so I find its name to be a little bit misleading, but still a good enough track to put at the top of B tier. Moving on to Shy Guy Falls. Shy Guy Falls is a little... I'm going to put it... I think it has to be even above Twisted Mansion. This is a very solid track. I wouldn't say A tier, but I really do like this track. It is so fun to go up the waterfall and down through the glider section. You feel like you're actually going through this weird mining operation with these Shy Guys. I'm not sure what they're collecting here with all of these crystals, but it is a very fascinating concept. I think I'm going to keep it at the top of B. Moving on to Dolphin Shoals. I have to put it at the top of A tier. It might even be S tier just for its music, but since we're ranking the track as a whole, I'm just going to keep it at the top of A tier and reserve the S tier for the truly amazing tracks. Dolphin Shoals is a unique track in the sense of it's half underwater, half above water, and it also experiments with the idea of going through these weird caves. At the very middle section of it, you go through a bunch of different pipes, and it's kind of like a later track with the Piranha Plant, but no, this one is a lot different. Dolphin Shoals music really does carry this track for me because every time I get out of that cave section past the big eel, from Mario 64 by the way, which is a cool callback, after I get past the big eel and you come out to emerge through this weird anti-gravity section towards the whirlpool, it is such a blast hearing that saxophone. Moving on to Electrodrome, which is not Electro Dome as I thought it was for a long time. This, in my opinion, has to go in D tier, and I know a lot of people have to be upset with that because I feel like a lot of people pick this track whenever I play with them in person or I play online, and yet I have never found it to be an appealing track. It's cool that it's like this club vibe that they're like jamming out and everyone's just having a good time listening to all these beats. The music is great as well. All of these tracks, particularly the original Wii U tracks, are so much fun to listen to, but I think this track is just a little bit boring for my taste. It all looks the same and it doesn't capitalize on the music club theme as much as I think it should. Moving on to Mount Wario, of course, has to be our first S tier. I think it is amazing that Mario Kart 8 really capitalized on the idea of taking 3 laps but not making every single lap the same. You're going through an adventure with Mount Wario. You go out of the plane, you drive on the mountain, you go through the cave system, and you go out through the woods, and finally you glide down to the section as if you're on some sort of ski mountain. It is a ride to experience. It's not just going through one lap 3 different times. It is so different than anything that has ever come before, and honestly, I think this track helped inspire a lot of Mario Kart Tours tracks. Most of those tracks that we'll come to later have a lot of those 3. It's like different laps every single time, those kind of tracks that are just like one continuous road, but it is so much fun to play. I love Mount Wario. Moving on to the Special Cup now, we have Cloud Top Cruise. I am going to put this in the top of B tier because I think the music is a fun play off of the Gusty Garden theme from Mario Galaxy. A lot of this is very Mario Galaxy inspired, and yet I don't understand the idea of the beanstalks. It is a really cool idea, but then you get on the Cloud Top ship, that's the Cloud Top Cruise part of it, and then you get through this big cannon that sends you through like an electric cave, which lightning blasts down on the boost panels, which is really fun, but I can't put it higher than B tier because it does a lot of great things, but nothing that stands out to me too much. Moving on to Bone Dry Dunes. A lot of people have this as their very first F track in a lot of these video rankings. I don't find this to be as bad as a lot of other people. I'm certainly not going to say it's better than Electrodrome or a lot of these other tracks up here, but I don't think it's an F tier track. Most of these tracks are not F tier. In fact, you will probably not see very many of them be in F tier. I just find this one to be a D tier track because it's a little bit bland. I do like the idea of running through a desert and there's all sorts of different bone structures that you're racing on. It makes you wonder what the heck would happen here, and all of the different ships with the toads on them and they throw coins at you. I really do like that idea, but they didn't do enough with it and the music is kind of eh. So, you know, the glider section at the very end is also kind of frustrating because it's almost impossible to get to that top path without a mushroom, and I have played this game for so many years now, and Bone Dry Dunes is just not one of my favorites. Moving on to Bowser's Castle. This is one of the best Bowser Castle additions in any Mario Kart game. I'm going to put it at the bottom of A tier. I really do like this track. It's so much fun driving through gargantuan places as a small kart rider. That is why I think a lot of the other tracks later on that I'm going to talk about are really cool because they use the sense of scale to give you wonder as you're driving through it. I love me some Bowser's Castle in any game, and I think they could have brought back a lot more from the previous games, and they really didn't capitalize on Bowser's Castle's coolness, but this one really did it justice. Next, we have Rainbow Road, and this has to be the top of A tier for me, almost S tier, but it's just not up to that Mount Wario standard for me. I love the music on this track. I love the colors of this track. A lot of people find this to be one of the most boring Rainbow Roads. I have never understood that. I love the idea of being on a big space station, and honestly, Mario Kart 8 did a lot of weird space stuff. I don't understand what the theme of that was, but the toads in their like little spacesuits floating around for the online mode, that was so cute. I really do love this Rainbow Road, and I think it's deserving of its A tier. Moving on to the Shell Cup now, we have Moo Moo Meadows, a classic from the Wii version. I'm going to put it at the top of C tier. I don't find it to be as inspiring as some of these other courses, and it's a little bit bland, but hey, that is fine. It came from the Wii version. It's a retro track for a reason. A lot of these are just spruced up for nostalgia purposes, not necessarily because they're a good track. It is fun dodging and weaving through these different cows, though. I really think they could have done a lot more with it, but I will put it in C tier for cow. C for cow. Moving on to Mario Circuit. This is another interesting one. I personally like playing on it, but I think objectively speaking, it's got to be at the bottom of C tier probably. This is a bagging track, and for those of you who don't play Mario Kart 8 Deluxe competitively, bagging is a technique where you kind of go to the back of the pack on purpose to get better items to then try to make a better comeback. There is a lot of skill involved with it. It isn't just going back, getting a bullet, and winning. A lot of times, if you don't do it correctly, you will lose the race entirely. So bagging is so much fun on this track because there are a lot of shortcuts, and I do rank this higher because of shortcuts. I think it would be D tier otherwise, but for the competitive scene, Mario Kart Circuit is pretty fun. Moving on to Cheep Cheep Beach, I think this has to be our first F tier course. I am just not a fan of it. It is on the DS, and I remember playing it back in the day, but it's just not as inspiring as it was back then to me. I did enjoy it on the DS, but now it's just not that fun. You go through a wooden track, you get to a weird glider section, you go around, and then there's these Cheep Cheeps, but they're not even really obstacles. Like, you barely even see them, and they don't even hit you. So I don't know why this track really has a need to come back. They could have done a lot of other cool tracks, like obviously that one DS track that everyone wants back, the one with the bullet bill on the big ship. I forget what it's called now. The name is eluding me, but I really do think that track is way more deserving than this, so we're going to put it in F tier. Moving on to Toad's Turnpike, this has to be another F tier course in my opinion. This is such a boring track. It's just like one big circle, one big 8, I believe, and you're just driving and there are cars around you, and that idea is just so underutilized. Those cars could be speeding around. They could be a lot more of an obstacle than they are, but they're just slowly moving and you're just slowly dodging, and it's just not fun. It doesn't really make good use of the mechanics that Mario Kart 8 introduced. Moving on to the Banana Cup, we have Dry Dry Desert. This is going to be another D tier in between Bone Dry Dunes and Electrodrome. I really do think this is fun for bagging purposes. Of course, at the very end, you can get a bunch of mushrooms and speed off to the end, and you pass everybody, and it's really fun if you really plan it ahead. But for obviously other purposes, for most casual play, this is not a good track. It's really boring aesthetically, and it just makes you want some water, right? It's got that dry effect on you. I always get a little thirsty when I see this track come up, and I don't typically pick it. Moving on to Donut Plains 3. This is a very short track, and I think it could have been a lot longer, but those SNES tracks, they didn't have a lot to work with there. So, I mean, it's one of the best looking tracks because it has that like muddy effect and that water effect, and it's really pretty, but because it's so short, I just have to put it at the I'll put it here in D tier. It's just not that fun for me. Moving on to Royal Raceway. This is really helping us save the Banana Cup here. I love me some Royal Raceway. I'm going to put it right below Cloud Top Cruise. No, you know what? Right above Cloud Top Cruise. I think it is deserving of that. It's such a cute track for me. I love playing it. The music is great. There are a lot of fun different methods that you can use on this track, a lot of different shortcuts, some different drifts that you can use on different corners. I love this track. I have always been really good at it, so maybe that's why I love it so much. But the aesthetics of it really appealed to me personally, and there are some great shortcuts, as I said. Moving on to the last track of Banana Cup. Of course, you gotta have your DK Jungle at the end of a Banana Cup. DK Jungle is so much fun. I love the big flower at the start. The music is phenomenal. I'll put it at the bottom of A tier. This really could have been better, but I honestly do think that the Banana Temple at the end is one of the best examples of like a grandiose different thing you can drive through. They should have done a lot more of those. I hope that the next Mario Kart really does increases the amount of grandiose things that you drive through, because the idea of being small and driving through this huge thing and you're dodging obstacles and it's like, whoa, I love big spectacles in games, and I really think they need to capitalize more on that. Moving on to the Leaf Cup, Wario Stadium is absolutely not my favorite. I'm going to put it at the bottom of D tier. I really think Bone Dry Dunes is better than this, and all of these other ones are better. Wario Stadium is fine. It doesn't do a lot to identify itself as a Wario Stadium. It just kind of has Wario on it. If you took out the big Wario statue and all of the other things like kind of advertising him, you wouldn't understand why it was Wario based. It just kind of is. So I don't know. It's not fun to me. I love at the end there, you got the big fire circles and you got to go through them, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not very intuitive. I'm not a fan. Moving on to Sherbet Land, another F tier course for me. I am just not a fan at all. It doesn't use the ice theme as well as it could. All of these different icicles are just annoying in their way, and the shortcut isn't even a shortcut. You just go down into the water and you hit the boost panels, but it's actually faster to just not even go that way, so it's annoying. I'm not a fan of this track. I feel as though a lot of people don't like it either, so at the bottom of F tier it will go. Music Park. This is a very creative track. I remember playing it on the 3DS. I'm going to put it at the top of C tier. It obviously has its flaws, but it has a lot going for it as well. The big music notes jumping at the end is so much fun. Riding on the piano and the xylophones is really, really smart. I love the big drum at the end. That shortcut is really fun. I think it could be a lot better, but it's not that bad, so C tier is where it goes. At the end of our Leaf Cup, we have Yoshi Valley. All of the different tracks on this one are really fun. I love having all these different ways to go to get to the same point, but if you know which fast way is to go, you're just going to take that every single time, so there's almost no point once you figure out that the one way to go is the fastest. Like the cannon track is like a 10-second delay, so why would you ever go out of your way unless you just wanted to fly through a cannon? But it doesn't make sense to have all of these different methods. I'm going to put it at the bottom of C tier. It's a very creative track, but it could be better. Moving on to the Lightning Cup, we have ourselves Tick Tock Clock. I'm going to put this at the top. You know what? I'm going to put it at the bottom of A tier. I think it's a very creative concept being in this little clock. I think it's really fun. Again, the grandiose spectacles, shrinking yourself down and then putting yourself in everyday objects like this is really cool, or just putting yourself in big grandiose places as well. This is another one of those examples I think is a really great idea, and I'm glad that they brought it back from the DS. There were so many great tracks from that game. This is one of my favorites. Moving on to Piranha Plant Slide. This was the Piranha course I was talking about earlier. I think this is a fine course. I think it's got to go to the top of C. I'm not a huge fan of it, but again, it's not offensive by any means. I think it's fine. Whenever it gets picked, I'm never like, oh, I don't want to play it, but I usually don't go out of my way to pick it. Moving on to Grumble Volcano. Man, this one could have been a lot better than it is. The Wii track was really fun. I think honestly this has to go right next to the Piranha Plant Slide. I'm not a fan of it. It's not offensive like I said before, but the idea of this volcano exploding and the track is deteriorating with every single lap is really cool, but the problem is every time I pass them, they've not deteriorated yet. Maybe this is a problem of just being a good player, but every time I go past it, it's like vibrating and then it goes down by the next lap, so I don't get to see it moving. And I just think it would be cool if it had moved a little earlier or if the track changed a little bit more drastically. And how it is now is fine, but it could be a lot better. Moving on to the next Rainbow Road, the N64 version, the infamous 3 continuous lap track that took like a billion years to complete on the N64. They made it a lot shorter in this version, and I do think it is quite the spectacle. Obviously, it's not super fun to just drive forward this whole time, but it is so creative, and it's very nostalgic for a lot of people. I think I'm going to put it at the bottom of B tier. It's such a creative track, having the train drive around the air. I don't even know how that works or how any of it works, but I do like the aesthetics of it, and it's going to be enough to put it up there. Moving on to the Egg Cup. Now we have Yoshi's Circuit. This is such a fun, unique track. I love it. It's another one of those bagging tracks. I'm going to put it at the top of B tier because it's such a creative idea to have a character and just have the track be an outline of that character. This looks literally like Yoshi, and you love looking at the mini-map and seeing that you're racing around his little back. It's so cute, and it's another bagging track like I said before. There's a great bullet extension right where that waterfall area is at the very start of the game, or of the track. If you use your bullet right there, it extends for so long and you just blow past everybody. I love Yoshi Circuit. It's such a great track. Moving on to Excite Bike Arena, F tier, bottom of F tier. Not fun. Never ever pick it, ever. It's just one big oval and the tricks are so boring. It's just not fun for me. I don't want to waste any more time on this. It's just not a fun track. Moving on to Dragon Driftway. This is another one kind of like the Yoshi circuit course. It's like a dragon outline and you are driving through it, and in it at the very start you go into its mouth. I think it's such a fun concept. I'm going to put it... I think I have to put it at the bottom of A tier, to be honest. It's not a super fun track to actually play, but the idea is cool enough and the spectacle is grand enough to where I enjoy using it. Moving on to Mute City. This was one of our first tastes of the actual F-Zero DNA being put into Mario Kart, and it's a fun track for sure. All the boost panels make you feel like you're going really fast, but you're not actually going that fast. So I'm going to put it at the middle section of B tier, close to the top, right below Royal Raceway. I really do like Royal Raceway for some reason. But Mute City is a great track in its own right. I love the aesthetic. I think a lot of people who know F-Zero better than I do would appreciate this more. But since I don't know all of that, I will just put it at the top here of B tier. Moving on to the Triforce Cup, we've got ourselves Wario's Gold Mine. Wario's Gold Mine, I think, was a little bit better in the Wii version. Not necessarily for any one reason or another, but when you bring back retro tracks for some reason, with the different mechanics and the different ways that you race in different Mario Karts, because they all feel different than their predecessors, I think sometimes when you bring it back, it loses a little bit of that magic. This is another case where the low resolution graphics kind of aided its aesthetics back in the Wii days, so I'm going to put it at the bottom of B tier. It's fine, but not anything I would go necessarily out of my way to pick it. Sometimes I'll pick it if I get that itch to do it, but it's just gonna have to stick there for now. Moving on to the SNES Rainbow Road, I am just seriously not a fan of any of the SNES tracks. They're fine, but they're just boring, so I'm gonna put it right here because, you know what, I'll put it at the top of D tier because it looks pretty and the big thwomps are really cool. I love the rainbow thwomps. It's like thwomps. I love the rainbow thwomps. It's like they have star effects on them for whatever reason, and that's cool, but they're just not my favorite. Moving on to Ice Ice Outpost, this has to be another A tier track. Where in A tier? Let's put it right above. Let's put it at the top of A tier. To be honest, I love me some Ice Ice Outpost. It's another theme that doesn't make a ton of sense. Do these toads all of a sudden just excavate ice for whatever reason? I don't know, but I love the music. I love the track. The different gimmicks on this track is basically you're going through the ice cave, and then before it and after it you have alternate paths that you can choose, and there's all kinds of chaos and red shells and green shells being thrown at you. This is a great track. Moving on to Hyrule Circuit, this is another A tier track. The end of the Triforce Cup here really carries. I think it's gonna have to go at the top of A tier, right below Ice Ice Output. It's just a really cool idea to be like, let's bring in this big castle. You drive through the gardens, you drive through the actual city itself, and then there are cool piranhas at the end, except they're Hyrule themed. I love this theme so much. The music is good, and then you have a couple of different ways that you can go through the castle itself. I just enjoy playing this track. Moving on to the Crossing Cup with the Animal Crossing leaf on it, you have Baby Park. I know a lot of people love Baby Park, so I'll put it in D. Yeah, I'll put it in D right here. It's just not my favorite. I always tend to do well on this track, and yet it's so chaotic and it doesn't feel like it's a ton of skill to me. But I don't know. People like it, so D tier, I guess. Cheese Land, S tier. Love me some Cheese Land. This is one of the best bagging tracks in the game, and also it's just so much fun to drive around this big block of cheese. It's so cool. I love Cheese Land so much. Of course, we have the music. All of the music in this game is amazing, but specifically with Cheese Land, when you're going through the different holes of cheese, those different tricks, the ending, you have all kinds of different shortcuts, the bullet extension, of course, right after the finish line, there is a bunch of item blocks, and right after the items, if you use a bullet, it will extend for the longest bullet extension in the game, and you pretty much drive through half of the course just in your bullet. It's such a fun track. I love playing on it. It's so chaotic, and it lives up to the Mario Kart name. Moving on to Wild Woods, of course, this is another A tier track. These DLC tracks really did a phenomenal job of sticking out to me. I love me some Wild Woods. It's such a cool idea to go through these big places. Of course, that's the theme here. If you go through weird locations, you can really make use of your size and the size of the environment around you. I love the aesthetics. I love driving through what seems to be some sort of a Donkey Kong-like forest, and yet it's not. It's almost like that big, deep forest from the Mario Odyssey game. I love this track, and it has to be an A tier. Moving on to the end of this cup, the Animal Crossing course is another A tier track for me. I love the Animal Crossing track. The music is great. The different themes are awesome. It actually does change a little bit. The layout stays the same, but with each different season, you get different obstacles on the path. You get different items that fall from the trees. Sometimes you get different things coming out of the rocks. It's such a cool track, and the idea of it being different every time you play it is so cool, and I think they could do that for a lot of different tracks as well. But Animal Crossing is so unique, so it's going to be at the top of A. I also just noticed that I had missed Sunshine Airport from earlier, so I'm going to put it at the top of B tier. A lot of people love this track more than I do. It's a fine enough track. I love going through the airport, but I really despise the part in the middle where right before you go to the glider section, the boost panels, the airplane goes over you, and that is a cool thing that they do, but I hate how the airplane actually drowns out the music. Like, if you play this track next time, you'll never see it again the same way. Go through that boost panel part, go through the glider part, and listen to the music die down. It totally gets quieter, and I hate that. So B tier is fine because it's such a cool idea and it's such a cool concept for a course, Like I said, just bigger, grandiose stuff, like being around big planes. That's cool. Be around big stuff in Mario Kart. That's awesome. So Sunshine Airport, top of B. Moving on to the last cup of the initial Mario Kart 8 Deluxe track courses before the DLC, you have yourself some Neo Bowser City. This track takes a lot of skill to get used to, but once you get those lines down, it is really fun. I think this is another B tier course. I'm going to put it above Sunshine Airport. It's totally fine. It doesn't do anything reckless. It doesn't do anything to offend me, but I just can't help but put it at B instead of A or C simply because of the aesthetics. Like, it's such a cool track to be going on. It's like neon colors. I love the idea of Bowser just being like, I'm gonna make my own city and then everyone can come if they want and race on it. Like, that's so much fun. And then it's always raining because of course it is. The diva Bowser has to have it raining all the time. So Neo Bowser City is at B tier. Moving on to Ribbon Road. This is an S tier course. I love the design. I love the music. I love the waviness of the ribbons towards the end and the big toy factor of this entire course. Some of the best part of this course and courses just like this one are the environment around the track. If you really take the time to look around you, you're in a kid's room. You've been shrunk down, and this is a big kid's room with all sorts of different Mario memorabilia and all sorts of different Nintendo stuff in it. This is such a cool track. They really need to capitalize on the idea of big and small more. Super Bell Subway. This has to be one of my favorite tracks in the game. I am going to put it at the top of A tier. I love me some Super Bell Subway. It's such a grand idea to go through a subway, to get through all these different trains and to maneuver your way through them, or you get different options. You're not just on the tracks. You can go above them, get some items. It's a little bit slower, but there are boost panels to try to make up for that, and you get items as well. Then you go through the actual subway area at the start where you would like walk through and get your tickets. It's such a cool idea. I love me some Super Bell Subway, and I have probably used that music track in all my videos more than any other in this game. Man, the Bell Cup was a banger. We've got ourselves some Big Blue here, another S tier course. Probably at the top of S tier. I love me some Big Blue. It is another one of those tracks where you just go through it. You don't do different laps. You don't do the same lap, I mean. It's different every single lap, and it's one long course to the end. It feels like an adventure. It truly does. I love me some Big Blue. You know why I love Big Blue if you've played this game. It's so long. It's so grand. I love the water section at the very beginning there. You can kind of leap over the top. There are a ton of different shortcuts. I love the ramps at the end of the section. It's so much fun. This is a grand course. It's the S tier course for sure. Moving on to the first batch of our DLC courses, we've got the Golden Dash Cup and we have ourselves Paris Promenade. A lot of different tour tracks are in this DLC, and a lot of them are not my favorites. However, I do not mind Paris Promenade. I'll put it at the bottom of B tier. It is really cool to drive under the Eiffel Tower, to be in Paris. The theme is great. I love me some Paris Promenade. Moving on to Toad Circuit. Come on. F tier. This is one of the worst tracks in the game. It looks bad. It's so short. It doesn't make sense that they brought this back for a DLC track. It's so boring. The circuit tracks really need to just stay on their consoles where they were. They don't need to come back. Why would you ever pick this one over some of the other cool ones? What in the world were you thinking, Nintendo? And also, this was the course that made people think, oh my gosh, these levels don't look up to par. They don't look the same graphically speaking as the regular Wii U versions did. So this is really bad. It's just got to be at the bottom of F. Choco Mountain, another F tier course for me personally. I have never liked Choco Mountain in any of the games I've ever played before. I don't get the appeal. It's a big mountain and it's chocolate. Okay, cool. Why? Why is it chocolate? What's the point? This is weird. I don't like the layout. I never feel like I do well on this course, so maybe that's bias here, but I just don't like it. Coconut Mall now. Of course, that's got to be A tier. It's not as good as the Wii version, probably, in my opinion, but it's really cool. I'm going to put it at the right in between Wildwoods and Rainbow Road. Coconut Mall is just iconic. Everyone knows what Coconut Mall is. Everyone knows the theme song. You're in a mall. It's really cool. Just take everyday things and race through it. Take things that are grandiose and race through it. It's really not that hard to make good tracks in this game or at any Mario Kart game. They're really starting to figure out towards the end of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe era what people love, and Coconut Mall has to be one of those tracks. Moving on to the Lucky Cat Cup, we've got ourselves Tokyo Blur. This is another tour track that I actually do like a lot. I'm going to put it at the top of B tier. I do not mind Tokyo Blur whatsoever. The music is great. I love racing through the city. I like the idea of driving through Tokyo. I like going through all these different places. At the very end where you do that big loop is really fun because typically you don't have a lot of items to protect yourself. So if you're in first place and that blue shell's coming, it's all sorts of chaos on that loop. I really do like this course. It's fun to use the different mechanics of not just having a 3-lap course where you go to different areas every single time, but sometimes reusing half of that lap. So you go through one lap and then you go through the second lap. Maybe you only use the first half of the first one and then you got a different one towards the second one and a totally different one on the third lap. So it's totally unique. It's totally fun. I do like myself some Tokyo Blur. Moving on to Shroom Ridge. We've got ourselves another F tier course, y'all. I do not like Shroom Ridge. They brought back so many bad DS courses towards the beginning of this era of the DLC packs. This track does not look as good as it should. The cool courses of just like having, oh, these cars are driving around, you gotta drive around them, is so overdone. It is so not fun. Moving on to Sky Garden. This track was butchered. It was so butchered. It looks nothing like the original bottom of D tier. It's fun, I guess, if you want to think of it as its new, unique course, but it's not Sky Garden. This is not my Sky Garden. Hashtag bring back Sky Garden. Next up, we've got ourselves some Ninja Hideaway. I love Ninja Hideaway. This is a very difficult track, but it is so much fun. I'm going to put it at the top of A tier. It is such a unique track, and it's one of the only tour tracks that people actually like, even though in the game it doesn't say it's from tour, which is so odd. It just says it's a unique course, so hey, maybe they made it from the ground up on Mario Kart 8 and then just so happened to put it in tour before it released. I don't know what that was up. What was up with that? But Ninja Hideaway is such a fun course. It's really difficult, as I said before, and it feels as though if you trick, you're just gonna go off the course and you're gonna die. It's so much fun. Ninja Hideaway A tier. Moving on to the Turnip Cup, we've got ourselves some New York Minute, hopefully inspired off of New Donk City, and yet it doesn't look anything like it. So I'm going to put it at the bottom of C tier. It's another fine tour course. I'm never going to pick it, but it's different when I do play on it, so I will appreciate it for that. Mario Circuit 3, another SNES course that I actually don't mind. I'm going to put it at the top. I can't put it above Grumble Volcano. I'm going to put it right here in C tier. It's fine. It's a bagging course. Of course, I love playing bagging tracks. It's fine. I don't know what else to say about it except the shortcuts are good. The music is fine. SNES courses are just not good. I don't know why they keep bringing them back, but as long as they're bagging tracks, I don't mind. Speaking of bagging tracks, we've got ourselves some Calamari Desert. I like Calamari Desert. I'm going to put it right next to Mario Circuit. It's fine. It's got a big train, but it doesn't use that enough. It doesn't have a big enough train, in my opinion. It could be bigger. The area could be bigger. They don't really capitalize on the desert part at all. You're just kind of in the middle of nowhere, and that is the only reason that you're in the middle of the nowhere is because there's a train, and I don't know. It's just not fun. So C tier it is. Next, we have our S tier Waluigi Pinball. Everybody knows it. Waluigi Pinball has to be one of the best, if not the best tracks in the entire game. It is so much fun to be in this huge pinball machine, to be in this Waluigi-themed place. It's so extravagant, it's so grandiose, it's so Waluigi. I would not imagine this place being any different than what it is now. It is perfect, and I love it. Moving on to the Propeller Cup, we've got ourselves some Sydney Sprints. I don't mind it. I don't hate it. D tier, because it's not super unique. It's not better than a lot of these other courses, but it is okay in its own right. I mean, it's just another tour track, right? We've had a lot of them so far, and they're all city themed. They're all unique in their own ways because they're like based on real life places, but they don't do a whole lot with that idea for this one specifically. Moving on to Snowland, another F tier game. I'll put it at the top of F tier because it's a bagging track, which is fine, I guess. I just don't like it. The ice physics are not fun to play on this track. The ice tracks just typically aren't fun in Mario Kart games to me personally, so it's just gonna have to be at the top of F tier. Next up, we've got ourselves some Mushroom Gorge. I love Mushroom Gorge. This was one of the best Wii tracks that they have. I'm gonna put it towards the top of A tier, probably right in between Animal Crossing and Ice Ice Outpost. In fact, let me switch this around a little bit. Ice Ice Outpost, and then Animal Crossing right here. Mushroom Gorge is so much fun. Those mushrooms are really great to bounce on. It just feels good. It's a classic from the Wii days. The music is great. There's a fun little shortcut at the end. I love this track. Nintendo knows what they were doing bringing it back, and they did a phenomenal job remastering it. Moving on to Sky High Sunday, or more like Sky High F Day. I cannot stand this track. It is just not fun at all. You're driving on weird ice cream things. It's unique to this game. It's not in any other game. I don't know. It's just not fun. I don't get it. It's just a big Excite Bike Arena except themed around ice cream. It's not fun. It's just not fun at all. Next track. Rock Mountain. I like Rock Mountain a lot. It's a little boring in some aspects, but it's going to be at the top of B tier here. I really do think Rock Mountain is a cool idea in concept, being around this big mountain and you're going around it and it feels big and grandiose, and you're going through this huge glider section towards the middle of the course, and that really was what the 3DS was advertising, was the glider sections, so they made a big deal out of it there. And here you can go through the glider section, you get to this one part with a bunch of mushrooms, and you can take a huge shortcut, which is so much fun. I love me some Rock Mountain. It has to go at the top of B tier, right above Tokyo Blur. And you know what, let me move up Sunshine Airport a little bit, because I know people like that and probably wouldn't be happy with it. You know what, I'm going to move up Shy Guy Falls as well. Okay, moving on. London Loop. We've got ourselves another tour track. This is another inoffensive one. Another one that I just am not a fan of. D tier for sure. It's fine. It looks cool, I guess, and you're going through this big area. I do like the idea of the laps, once again, of just it not being one continuous 3-track lap. It's fine. I don't know. London Loop is so uninspired to me. It is just a city theme just to be a city theme. It has no motivation whatsoever, and it's just fine, so bottom of D tier. Next we have Boo Lake, and I am not a fan of this either. I'm going to put it at the top of F tier. I always do horrible on this track, and it's so short, and it doesn't look, I mean, the water looks really good, don't get me wrong. The wooden aspect of it is fine as well. It's just boring. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't make sense. It's just a huge lake with some boos. I don't even know. Maybe I'm not looking right, but I don't see any boos when I'm driving, so whatever. It's fine. Top of F tier. These are not good courses. But to break out of this horrible rut, I'm going to put us Maple Treeway at the probably close to the top of A tier. Let's see what we got going on here. I think I'm going to put it right above Mushroom Gorge. I love Maple Treeway. It's a classic, another Wii game, another Wii track that is so phenomenal. The fall aesthetics, the leaves is so beautiful. The wigglers running around are so cute. I love the tree at the very start that you drive through, and you can take a shortcut to go up towards the top of it and kind of drive through its limbs. It's so much fun. They did a great job making you feel like all these trees are massive around you. Moving on to the Moon Cup. We are almost halfway through the DLC courses. We've got ourselves some Berlin Byways. Another fine one. I think I'm going to put it toward the top of D tier this time. It's better than some of the other ones because of all the cars moving through. This, Nintendo, take notes. Take notes, Nintendo, because this is how you do the actual highway right, where all these different cars are driving around. Don't make the theme of the track with the cars. Just make it to where the theme of the track is something else and then actual cars are driving around you. This is how you do it right, because these are the ones that come out of nowhere and actually I hit sometimes. Not all the time, like with the other courses that I never hit them, but this one, they will get me sometimes if I'm not paying attention. So Berlin Byways is the best way to do actual cars around you, but it's really boring. It's another city track, another tour track that they just kind of put in because it was filler. Whatever, moving on. Peach Gardens. This has to be an S tier track for me personally. I love Peach Gardens. Let's put it right above Ribbon Road. The music is great. They actually did it so differently. They remade it from the DS days to where it is not just same lap every single time. You go through it once, you go through it twice, and then you go backwards. It's so much fun. They did a phenomenal job innovating off of the original course, and honestly, I think it's better than the original, and that's how you do it, Nintendo. That is how you bring back courses and make them even better. Peach Gardens is so great, and it is another S tier course. Next, we've got ourselves some Merry Mountain. Merry Mountain is fine. I think I'm going to put it at the bottom of C tier. I love the aesthetics. It came around Christmas time, of course, and so the Merry theme is really cool. It's a big mountain, and there's the flying. Another one, if I had a nickel for every single time there was a flying train, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right? With the Rainbow Road Train. So now we've got Merry Mountain here. C tier because it's just kind of boring. You go up the big mountain, you're kind of scaling it, and then you do another downward snow mountain action, but it's not actually like a ski theme. So you're just kind of going down, and there aren't a ton of boost panels, so it feels weird that you're not going faster, but you're going downwards. And then you hit a little glider section before the end of the track, and you go through this little city. I do like it a lot, but it's going to be C tier because it's a little boring. It's kind of ovalish, which is not fun for me. I love when tracks are different and not just big circles. So I think it's fine. We're going to put it bottom of C. Next, we've got the 3DS Rainbow Road, finishing off our Moon Cup. Rainbow Road is okay at best. I think it's one of the worst ones in the series, to be honest. A lot of people love this Rainbow Road. It's going across these big grandiose places, so you think I'd like it, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't scratch that itch for me. The very start, I think, is what gets me, and the very end, I think, is what gets me, because it's just long tracks around nothing for no reason. You're spinning around this big moon, I suppose, but at the very end, it's just kind of a bunch of nothing. So I'm gonna put it towards the bottom of B tier, probably above, you know, maybe towards the top. I'll put it here. I'll put it here at the top of B tier. It's good enough to where I can recognize objectively people love it, and it needs to go at the top of B. Next, we've got ourselves the Fruit Cup and Amsterdam Drift, another D tier city course. It's not an F tier in my opinion, but just another bleh. Nah course. I don't need to explain that. You know exactly what's up with these ones. Next is Riverside Park. This is another bagging track that I'm not a huge fan of. I'll put it towards C tier, even though it is a bagging track and it's got these weird piranha plants and the music is pretty fun. I don't know. It feels really short to me and I feel like it should be longer, so I'm just going to put it right here. Next, we have DK Summit, and you gotta tell me right now if this ain't an S tier course. I love me some DK Summit. I'm going to put it right above Cheeseland, right next to this Mount Wario. DK Summit, I think, does it the best. It's like a skiing resort, but also you have like snowboards. The half pipe at the end is really cool, and then you take the cannon up to the top. DK tracks really do the cannons well. I love me some DK Summit, and I love the aesthetics of this course. The big statue in the middle of DK, and it used to be Mario, which was weird, but it's so much fun, and I'm glad it is in this game. S tier. Another brand new course that they added was Yoshi's Island, and I think this has to go in the B tier category, probably right above Sunshine Airport. It pays homage to the Yoshi's Island games of prior, the 2D games that really set the standard for Yoshi games moving forward and never hit those highs again. People love themselves some Yoshi's Island in the original SNES, and it just never came back. But this pays such beautiful homage to that game. I love all of the different courses that actually innovate off of the different styles of games, off of the different games in the Mario universe, and Yoshi's Island does a phenomenal job of that. Oh man, next we've got the Boomerang Cup and one of the most offensive tracks in the game. Every time I see Bangkok Rush come up and people pick it, I just question that person's sanity. I hate Bangkok Rush so freaking much. It's such a bad course. I don't like it whatsoever. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. It makes me so angry. But the ending where you go around this big parking garage and then there are these stupid little like setups, like these weird places where you would see vendors normally and you bounce on top of them and it's so slow, and then you go backwards through the start of that area where it's like the weird stairs. It's just like an actual highway, and except it's not. I don't like it at all, and we're moving on. Next, we've got Mario Circuit from the DS, another interesting course because I think it could have been better, but I think they did a pretty decent job porting it over to the Switch. I'll put it at the bottom of C tier, right above New York Minute. It's another one of those bagging tracks that I really do enjoy playing on, but it's a little boring, a little bland. I wish they had picked one of those actual courses where you go through Peach's Castle itself instead of it just being a part of the landmark around you, but it's fine. You just go around and you go through a little forest. It's like different environments, but it doesn't do a lot to expand on that idea, so it's going to be in the middle of C tier. Next up, we've got Waluigi Stadium in this Boomerang Cup that we are in here. Waluigi Stadium is pretty good. I think I'm going to put it towards the top of B tier, probably right below Rock Mountain. This is the one, like, earlier we had Wario Stadium, and that didn't make sense because it wasn't really Wario themed. It was just like the big monster truck area, but this one is like actually Waluigi. If you look around, it's a big arena, it's big and grandiose, and this feels like this is something Waluigi would make, not like opposed to the Wario Stadium, which is probably down here somewhat. Yeah, D tier. It just doesn't, it really stands out as Waluigi to me, and I don't know what that difference is, but all the purple makes me feel like it's Waluigi themed, so I love it, and it's really cool. Next, we've got Singapore Speedway, another uninteresting city tour track, and I'm just going to put it in D tier and move on. Moving on to the Feather Cup, we've got ourselves some Athens Dash here. This is a fine enough course, one of the better tour tracks in terms of cities, because it actually explores an ancient city, Athens. I love myself some really cool, big places like these ruins are. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Womp Ruins up here in A tier, but not good enough to put it outside of this tier here, so I'm going to put it towards the bottom of B. Next, we've got Daisy Cruiser, and I think you guys are going to really disagree with me here, but I'm going to put this at the bottom of A tier. right above Dragon Driftway, to be honest. I love me some Daisy Cruiser. I love all the Daisy themed tracks for whatever reason. This is another one that doesn't technically make sense. I don't see any sort of Daisy themed stuff except for that little pool at the beginning. It has our little logo on it, but it doesn't do a lot to be super interesting, and yet I love the idea of being on this big cruiser in the middle of nowhere. You're driving through it and the boat is like rocking the tables around and you gotta dodge them. It's just so much fun. I love the cruiser aesthetic. Moving on to Moonview Highway. The Wii has got some banger tracks here, and this is another A-tier course. It's gonna be in the middle of A-tier, right above Toad Harbor for me. I love Moonview Highway. The music is phenomenal, and this is another one where it does a highway theme, except it does it really, really well because you're in a big city and you're going around all of it, and you've got these big posters around it, and then there are big cars that, like the big bomb ones, that blow up if you run into them. It actually makes it feel threatening to be around these different cars rather than just dodging them and feeling as if they have no purpose. I love Moonview Highway. I love how they did this highway theme right for once in their lives. It's a great track, and it's an A-tier track. Moving on to the end of the Feather Cup, we've got Squeaky Clean Sprint, another original track for this game. Squeaky Clean Sprint is fine. I think a lot of people love it, and I just kind of like it. So we're going to put it towards the middle of B tier, probably above Twisted Mansion, below Cloud Top Cruise. I think Squeaky Clean Sprint is another track that I have been clamoring for with all of these, to be either small in a big environment or big in an even bigger environment, and it does it really uniquely, I think, because you're going through different tubs, you're going through a toilet, and then it's like all this different soap around you, and it's a drain. It's so unique, it's a great concept, and yet I feel as though they don't do it well enough because it doesn't feel as if you're really having a good time driving, to me at least. I've never really enjoyed playing through this track. It just feels weird going through the underwater sections, and a lot of the other underwater tracks, like Dolphin Shoals, for example, up here, do it better in my opinion, and I can't quite put my finger on why that's the case, but for now, Squeaky Clean Sprint will be in B tier. Moving on to LA Laps. This is a fine enough course, I suppose. I'm going to put it at the bottom of D tier with all of these other tour tracks. Just not a fan. Just really not a fan. It's boring, and it's another Tour City track. Then you've got yourself some Sunset Wilds, another F tier course. I despise what they did here. The sunset part of this track is gone. They don't do it anymore, and they just decided we're not going to do the sun effect anymore, because if you don't know, on the GBA, it actually made the sun in the background go up and down, and that was so much fun. You could actually drive through it and it would feel different, but they took that out for whatever reason. They decided not to use the actual sunset effect, and it's not a graphical thing, it's not a power thing. They absolutely could do it. They just chose to make it worse. So a bad track and a bad course and a bad cup. Moving on to Koopa Cape. This is a great course. I'm going to put it towards the middle of B tier, probably right above Tokyo Blur. I love Koopa Cape. I think the Wii tracks are amazing. I've said that a million times, but this one, it could be better. This is a Wii track done poorly in my opinion, because they took out the idea of going through the electric part underwater, since they remade it for the Mario Kart 8 engine, and they remade it to where, oh, you don't have to go through a different tube, because obviously in this game you can go underwater. And yet, that was the appeal of the initial course, was that you go through the tube and there's an electric spinner and you have to avoid it. So they kind of made it to where there's no obstacle there, and it's so annoying to me. But outside of that bad part, everything about the track is really good. It's up to date and it's really fun to play on modern hardware. Moving on to Vancouver Velocity, it's another city track that I just don't like. So we're going to put it at the bottom of D and move on. Moving on to the Acorn Cup, we've got ourselves Rome Avanti, and this is one of the better tour tracks in terms of city themes. I'm going to put it towards the top of C tier, and I'm going to put it right above Calamari Desert, and I'm going to put Paris Promenade down here because that was crazy that I put that up there so high. I love me some Rome Avanti, to be honest. You go through the big Coliseum, you go through the city itself. There's a lot of different water effects and great cool effects that they do, graphically speaking. There's not a ton of track diversity in terms of where you can go and shortcuts you can take, but I do love the idea of being in the city at night with all the lights on, and it really feels like you're in Rome, and it hits that theme perfectly. So I'm going to put it towards the top of C tier. Then we've got ourselves some DK Mountain. It's another S tier course. I adore DK Mountain. I'm going to put it right above DK Summit. I think it's a classic from the GameCube version. I love DK Mountain so much. The big cannon at the start, you go on the top of the mountain, you descend the mountain, there's like a little grassy part where you have to maneuver, you can jump through the middle of it. It's so much fun. I love the windy bridge at the end, and you always freaking fall off there at the last second. There's always some red shell that hits you on that, and then you get bumped off into oblivion until before you know it, it's 12th place and you've lost. And it's so much fun, so much Mario chaos in that game, in that track specifically. So DK Mountain goes in S tier. We've got ourselves Daisy Circuit now, another S tier track in my opinion, and you might call me crazy for putting it here, but I don't care. Call me crazy. The Daisy themed courses are what give me life, man. This one, the sunset is so beautiful, the music is perfect, the fountain is amazing. I love this course. Even though it's simple, it does its simplicity so well. You start off and you go through a little town, and then you go around these statues, under a tunnel, around the big statue at the end. It's just perfect. It does everything it's trying to be. It sets out to do what it wants to do, and it does it perfectly, and I love it for that. Daisy Circuit is at the bottom of S tier. Moving on to the last Acorn Cup track, we've got ourselves some Piranha Plant Cove, another brand new course, I believe, that was from Tour, but they labeled it as not from Tour. Piranha Plant Cove, I think I'm going to put towards the bottom of A tier. I think it's a fine track. I love it. The eels all around you. It's like a big ruin area. You're going through these ruins that are underwater, and yet you're above water sometimes too. And then there are thwomps, which makes me feel like this place has been here forever. I love Piranha Plant Cove's underground sections where you go through the caves and you go through the little shortcut and you have to dodge all of these different things. It's a really fun and unique track, and I think they could do it a little bit better if they were ever to redo a concept like this or redo this track, but it's got that A tier quality, so I'm going to put it in the bottom of A tier. Finally, our last cup of the day, the Spiny Shell Cup. We've got ourselves Madrid Drive, another fine enough tour track that's not super offensive, that isn't inoffensive. I'll put it right above Berlin Byways on the top of D tier. It's fine enough. I love the big soccer field at the end of this course. It's really cool to get that little Madrid feeling in you. But I don't know. I don't think it's good enough to put it above D tier in my opinion. Oh boy, here's another controversial one. We've got Rosalina's Ice World. I'm gonna put this in S tier as well. Why do you ask? I'm gonna put it in S tier. Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, this track, aesthetically speaking, is perfect. You've got the big Comet Observatory from Mario Galaxy sitting at the finish line. You've got the big ice that you're going around. It really does dig into that ice track feeling, and is one of the only tracks in the game where I love the snowy ice vibe because it feels so Christmassy, and yet at the same time, it feels mysterious. It gives off a Rosalina vibe for sure. This feels like a place where she would come for vacation and just chill out because she loves chilling on the ice, right? So Rosalina's Ice World is a front-running track to where if you go off to the beginning, you have to make sure you stay in the beginning, because if you just do the lines correctly, you will outlast everybody else. And I have done so many time trials with this course and have come to appreciate its design even more. I love Rosalina's Ice World, and it's at the bottom of S tier. Moving on to Bowser's Castle 3. This is an interesting one because I really think of all the Bowser's Castles they could have done, I really do not like that they picked the SNES version. If you would have told me beforehand that they picked the SNES Bowser's Castle instead of a real Bowser's Castle, I would have been really upset, but they did a decent enough job at remastering it, making it better for modern hardware, making it better for modern standards. That is going to have to go towards the top of C tier, right above Grumble Volcano, because I honestly do think the anti-gravity effects and the music behind it with like that really grungy like Bowser feel is cool, and the lava coming up, it just looks better. Obviously from the SNES days, it looks a lot better, and it does better for any other SNES course. In fact, I think this is my highest ranked SNES course in the entire ranking system here, so it shows volumes as to why I think it's one of the best in the game, and I'm going to put it towards the top of C tier. But it is a little bit disheartening to me that they didn't bring back the Wii Bowser's Castle or the other ones. There are so many better Bowser Castle tracks they could have done, but they did a well enough job with what they had. And lastly, we've got ourselves the Wii Rainbow Road to finish off this Spiny Cup. I love Wii Rainbow Road, and of course it is S tier. A lot of people were wondering if this track would ever make it up to modern standards, and yet they finally brought it back. It is a very long track, and it can be pretty difficult if you don't know what you're doing, but for me personally, who really grew up on those Wii days, grew up on that Mario Kart Wii vibe, I love seeing it in modern hardware, modern expectations. This game is so beautiful. It is amazing. I love how it brought all of these amazing tracks together. Now here is my final rankings. We got an F tier: Boo Lake, Snowland, Shroom Ridge, Cocoa Mountain, Sherbert Land, Toad's Turnpike, Cheap Cheap Beach, Excite Bike Arena, Sunset Wilds, Sky High Sundae, Toad Circuit, and at the very bottom, the worst course in the game, Bangkok Rush. In D tier, we've got Madrid Drive, Berlin Byways, Baby Park, Electrodrome, Rainbow Road, Donut Plains 3, Dry Dry Desert, Bone Dry Dunes, Wario Stadium, Sky Garden, Singapore Speedway, Sydney Sprint, London Loop, Los Angeles Laps, Amsterdam Drift, and Vancouver Velocity. All of the tour tracks, all of these city tracks tend to go at the bottom of D tier. Moving on to C tier now, we've got Bowser's Castle 3, Grumble Volcano, Rome Avanti, Calamari Desert, Paris Promenade, Mario Circuit 3, funny enough, Piranha Plant Slide, Music Park, Moo Moo Meadows, Water Park, Sweet Sweet Canyon, Yoshi Valley, Mario Circuit, New York Minute, Merry Mountain, and Riverside Park. All somewhat disappointing tracks, yet some tracks did a lot better than I anticipated. C tier was a mixed bag. Now moving on to the B tier, the tracks I thought were pretty decent but could have been better. Rainbow Road at the very top, Rock Rock Mountain, Waluigi Stadium, Yoshi Island, Sunshine Airport, Shy Guy Falls, Koopa Cape, Tokyo Blur, Neo Bowser City, Yoshi Circuit, Royal Raceway, Mute City, Cloud Top Cruise, Squeaky Clean Sprint, Twisted Mansion, Mario Kart Stadium, Mario Circuit, Rainbow Road, Athens Dash, Wario's Gold Mine. At the top of A tier, some of the best tracks in this game, we have Ninja Hideaway, Super Bell Subway, Ice Ice Outpost, Maple Treeway, Mushroom Gorge, Animal Crossing, Hyrule Circuit, Wild Woods, Coconut Mall, Rainbow Road, Dolphin Shoals, Moonview Highway, Toad Harbor, Thwomp Ruins, Bowser's Castle, DK Jungle, Tick-Tock Clock, Daisy Cruiser, Dragon Driftway, and Piranha Plant Cove, rounding out the A tier. Now friends, for the best of the best, we've got ourselves the final, 13? Final 13, we have Rosalina's Ice World, Daisy Circuit, Ribbon Road, Peach Gardens, Cheeseland, DK Summit, DK Mountain, Mount Wario, Big Blue, Waluigi Pinball, and the Wii version of Rainbow Road. So, those were my rankings of all 96 Mario Kart 8 Deluxe tracks. I cannot wait for the next Mario Kart game. I am excited to know what you think of all of these rankings down below in the comments. So, if you stuck out to the very end, you must have enjoyed this video in some capacity. So make sure you like and subscribe today's video if you did enjoy. Click the notification bell to know when my videos release, and consider joining my membership program to get early access to all of my videos, just like this one, just a few bucks a month, and you get access to Discord servers and badges next to your name and priority response to comments. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the very end. If you like this style of video, watch my video ranking every single first-party game on the Nintendo Switch. And if you like Mario, which I'm sure you do if you've made it to this point, click on the right video to see how the Nintendo Switch saved Mario's legacy. My name is Ray. This has been Ray's Nintendo Talk. I hope you all have a phenomenal day, and I will see you all in the next video.